good morning, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited and so honored to host all of you. I am 𝗥𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀𝗄𝗏, CEO and founder of 𝗥𝗍𝗔. I am an organizational psychologist and a clinical counseling psychologist, and 𝗥𝗍𝗔 is a boutique consulting practice that helps companies navigate change by aligning business strategy with your people strategy. So essentially, we're here to help you hire the right people, build strong teams, develop your leaders, measure and manage your culture. Now, at 𝗥𝗍𝗔, we use psychological science to solve business problems, and we do this through education, coaching, and data. So in addition to me, our team includes trained psychologists with backgrounds across several psychology disciplines, including organizational psychology, clinical, developmental, cognitive, applied neuropsychology, music psychology, and even more than that. So we pull from all of that data and research to provide these services to you. And one of our core missions is to get good psychological science into the hands of great leaders, because you are experts in your business and we are experts in people. And when those two things come together, real transformation happens. So thank you for being here. Now, I am excited to welcome you to our quarterly 𝗥𝗍𝗔 Community Lab. So we meet every quarter on the 15th of the first month, and we explore core themes and topics that matter to leaders right now. This lab is a community of leaders, and it's open to all. This lab is for our past, current, and future clients of 𝗥𝗍𝗔. So let me tell you what the purpose of this event is to give you some context. So this space has three purposes. First, it's all about community. We say at 𝗥𝗍𝗔 all the time that leadership should not be done in isolation. And leadership can feel very isolating sometimes, but it does not have to be. So this lab is a chance to connect with other leaders across industries. Some are in similar roles, others are in very different roles, but we are all facing the same challenge of how to lead people well. You do not have to do it alone. So second, the purpose of this event is all about new learning. You don't have time to keep up with all of the latest research, so we do that for you. We bring you fresh learning, practical frameworks, and new ways to think about the work you're doing, all from a psychology and business research perspective. So the content of these labs come directly from all of you. All of the conversations and emails that we all have back and forth, there are themes among you, and we take those themes and we turn them into these labs. We say, hey, all of our clients are struggling with this. Let's do a lab on it. So that's where the content comes from. And then third, this is about partnership. As psychologists, we're here to help you do the work of leadership, not just talk about it. You can't do it all alone, and we're here to support you to do that with tools, frameworks, guidance, and to help you make that change happen. So here's how the flow of the lab is going to go. Here's what you can expect. Here's the agenda. Here's the game plan. So we'll start off with a coaching question to help you reflect about the last quarter, to spend some time thinking, and then we'll move into a 30-minute lesson. So we're going to feature a guest speaker and a guest expert every single time. And finally, we close with just a few key takeaways and a few final reflections. You're welcome to keep your cameras on. You're welcome to keep your cameras off. You can participate however you want, but I do encourage you to open up the chat. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and open up the chat, because that's where the conversations and the questions and the mingling is going to happen. So don't worry, after the lab, we will send all of you a follow-up. The slides, the insights, the articles, the resources, the shared reflections, it's all going to be sent to you so that you can take that back to your teams, okay? Now, as we move through the lab, I'm excited to introduce you to Elizabeth Miller. She is in the chat. She is our lab engagement manager or leader. So if you have any technical questions or needs, you can send her a message directly, Elizabeth Miller, or just drop a comment in the chat and she will come find you if you have any questions. As we go through the lab, you'll notice that there are a few icons, and that usually represents an article or a video or a study or a link. So we will send you all of that stuff at the end, but Elizabeth will be dropping it in the chat in case some of you are impatient and you want to look at it right now. So we'll drop those goodies for you in the chat as we go through, okay? So to begin this party, I'm going to ask Elizabeth if you're willing to take yourself off of screen for just a moment. You don't have to, but Elizabeth's going to take a group picture. So what she's going to do, you're going to get a prompt that says, would you like your picture taken? You can say no if you want. And we're going to ask you to maybe hold up whatever it is you're drinking. Is it your coffee? Is it your, I've got a Wonder Woman cup right here. So if you want to hold that up, and Elizabeth, can you go ahead and take a group photo for us?
Sure. I see Vince was trying to come in and I saw Maria there's two people and Maria Purcell upset about the drink, like, oh my God, what is happening?
Go get
So
your drink. Come on, let's do this.
rather than doing the photo, first of all, welcome everyone and thanks for having me here, Michelle. Rather than doing the photo where we do 1, 2, 3 and everyone's kind of off, Zoom has this really cool feature and you get to time yourself. So I'm going to say take a photo and you'll be asked to do it and you can quick prep yourself. Here we go. And if you don't want to, then say don't allow. That's your choice.
All right, that was cute. Take a
Oh,
sip of
they're
your
coming
caffeine.
in.
Hydrate.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're coming in.
Okay, are we good to move on? I want to keep us on schedule here.
Yep.
All right,
Thanks.
let's do this. So let's get started. So a good place to start is, like I said, at the start of every lab, we're going to open with 2 questions. And the reason we do this is simple, because leadership moves fast. You're constantly giving direction, solving problems. So in this lab, I'm not just a facilitator, I'm your coach for the next hour. We are your teachers for the next hour, and we're here to support you. So before we dive into new ideas, let's just spend a minute and reflect for a moment. So the first one's easy. What was successful this past quarter? So I encourage you, open up the chat and just drop something positive in the chat to share with other people. And here's the thing. We can't get better as leaders if we don't know what's working. We can't get better at the skills we're trying to develop if we don't know what strengths and capabilities we have. So in order to build, in order to get better, in order to get stronger, we first have to start with what's going well. What was successful? What was a win? What was something that went really well this past quarter? So if you're willing to share, if you want to, drop something in the comments, because I guarantee you there's a leader on this call that whatever success you saw this past quarter, someone else on this call is struggling with. So we need to see each other's successes, and we need to be able to have a little champagne moment and say, hey, here's what happened this past quarter for me. So since I'm here, I'll share very briefly, one of the big successes I had this past quarter was Elizabeth Miller. She's a new engaged team member, and she has been helping me run these events with a lot more success than I've been able to in the past. So I have a success moment of like, yeah, when you have really good team members and when you have other people supporting you, really good things happen. Awesome. So I see some comments, keep them coming. I'm going to ask you the second question now. So keep thinking, keep reflecting. This is a moment for you to stop and think about the last quarter. Now, here's the harder question I'm going to ask. And if you don't have the answer, that's okay. Maybe you just spend the next few moments just reflecting and thinking. If you have something to say, of course, we want to hear from you. Well, let me ask you this. When you think about a recent high stress moment, which strengths or values did that stress help you tap into? Stress has a way of revealing who we are. So when the pressure is on, what showed up in you? Was it resilience? Was it focus? Was it courage? Was it fear? Did you lean into transparency? Did you lean into humor? Maybe empathy? So maybe ask yourself, what part of me got stronger in the process of facing stress? What value did I double down on when I was facing stress, even when it was hard? This isn't about framing everything as positive. It doesn't always have to be a good thing, because sometimes, when we're facing stress and our fears come through, some ugly stuff comes out. And that's okay, because that's part of being human and that's part of learning how to lead. And it's about recognizing the inner resources that you draw on when things get tough. So take a moment, reflect, and if you feel comfortable, share something in the chat. What did stress reveal about you? And what can you take into the next quarter? I'll give you a few moments of silent reflection. Okay. So hopefully that kind of got our brains moving a little bit. thinking a little deeper, thinking a little bit more intentional. So I'm going to start to take us into the main content. But like I said, throughout this next part of the conversation, keep engaging in the comments. Drop your questions, drop your thoughts. Maybe you have advice for the group. Maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I faced this and this was super helpful. So what we're going to do at the end of the session is if you have questions, comments, drop it in the chat. And then after the session is over, we collect all of your feedback, all of your questions, and we will compile it and we will send that out to you, and we'll include some of the answers or feedback or comments that all of you talked about. Okay? So hopefully that got you to a good place to kind of think a little bit more deeply. I'm going to move on and we're going to start to have a conversation about the reason that many of you are here, and that is leading at speed, which is the topic of today's session. Now, many of you joining us today are in private equity or you work closely with private equity, and you know that the pressure is real. But even if you're not in private equity, I promise this topic still applies to you, because the speed of business is accelerating everywhere, across industries, across roles, across the world. And no matter your background, many of us are facing the same challenges. How do we lead well when everything is moving fast? So that's the focus of the conversation today. Now, to help us with this journey, I am so excited and so proud to introduce our guest expert this quarter, and that is Jennifer Furstenberg. So Jennifer is a brilliant organizational development leader. She's a seasoned talent expert across a range of industries and a previous client, where she most recently served as Chief People Officer at MSHS and PPG, which is a private equity-backed company. And she's had the direct experience of leading during the PE acquisitions and M&A. She and I had the privilege of working together on leadership initiatives, supporting both the executive teams, the employees. So I got to see her firsthand in her sharp thinking and deep insight when it comes to leading through complexities. So please help me welcome Jennifer to the lab. Give her a wave, drop a comment, and welcome her to say hello. So Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michelle. So I appreciate being here. So she gave quite a bit of information there. I'm pretty humble, so this is difficult, I'll be honest. But I do have about 30 years of human resource L&D and organizational development experience. I have worked in various sectors, from higher education, which wasn't my deal, to manufacturing, construction. And I think most importantly is I've had the ability to work in the publicly traded companies, privately held and PE backed. And again, there's a lot of similarities, but I will say in the PE world, it definitely was a ramp up. And as being the CPO, part of what I want to share with you today is one, a lot about my personal experience, but also having the vantage point of being able to observe the interactions of the executive leadership team and how we navigated, really from the point of acquisition, how we navigated and the changes we experienced in trying to lead at speed, which is the critical component that we're here to talk about today. So I thank you for having me, and hope I can share some light. Again, this is very personal to me and my experience, and thank you.
Awesome. It's going to be a good one. All right. All right. So to kick things off, Jennifer, before we dive into the competencies themselves, let's start by grounding ourselves in the challenge. Right. So Jennifer, since your background includes so much expertise in the private equity experience, can you tell us a little bit about your background in private equity, some of the experiences you had leading at speed, and from your perspective as Chief People Officer, what were some of the key challenges you saw across the organization? Where did the pressure really show up for your leaders?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we, as we had this conversation, Michelle and I, there were a couple of things that really stood out to me. And again, these are things that I experienced, but also saw in our organization. But I think the first is when you, I'll take myself. So I went through due diligence. I'm a part of preparing for this transaction. You hear, you're in a position where somebody wanted to buy the company that you work for. So you feel like you've done a lot of things very well. And then you see continuity. And I'd say the continuity is, for us, our name didn't change on the building. Our business cards were still the same. Titles really didn't change. And so you come in feeling like you've got a good understanding of the business. But I think where there was a disconnect for me and some of us coming over is that it really is a new model. And I'm going to talk about that a lot today. It is a private equity model. And again, I wish I had had a better understanding of it before, because that model is different. And there is a new strategy. There are new leaders, there are new owners, there's new expectations. And so to be able to lead at speed meant adapting to that model. And I think you'll hear Michelle and I talk a lot about that today: adapt, adapt, adapt. So that was one of really trying to get a deep understanding of what that new model is. Part of that new model, we listed here as hyper growth, but again, from the world that I came from, we were in a position of trying to position the company to sell. So it was about making sure we recovered debt. We did budget containment. We were very strategic in a safe manner about how we ran our business. And it felt like hyper growth transitioning to private equity, because you go from this mentality of cost containment to, okay, we're going to grow the organization. And it really goes beyond I think the best word is containment. And so it was going from being a transactional day to day, being in the details, providing oversight, making sure we weren't overspending, to all of a sudden really looking up and trying to determine how do we set a strategy to grow without limits. And I mean, there's some limits. I don't want to understate that, but I think that it felt to me like all of a sudden, for the first time, I had a checkbook after years of experience. We put compressed timelines, and I think the word that really stuck out for me was, how do we increase the velocity? So again, in an environment where you are working to on cost containment, the velocity is very different. It's more methodical and process oriented. And all of a sudden, we move at a fast speed. And the expectation is there to deliver on results quickly. I think what really stood out to me is I vividly remember during an interview, I was having a conversation with one of the leaders, and it was about giving me permission to make mistakes. And yet, for me, that was still really challenging because, okay, one, I'm new to an organization. I want to do well. I don't want to make mistakes. Mistakes could be very detrimental to the business in the past. And so all of a sudden, this value system that you've operated by goes, you're being told it's okay to put it aside because we need to move fast and we need to make decisions and we need that velocity to hit our targets. Yet it's that yin and yang. It's like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? It's, again, you don't want to make mistakes. So really understanding the velocity and becoming comfortable with that, which I think is the whole basis of this conversation today. And then the other thing, again, for me and the team was really kind of resetting yourself, and how do you become a transformational leader versus a transactional leader? So I'll say I felt like I was I can say I was a really good transactional leader. But all of a sudden, to be catapulted into a true leadership position, which is about driving results for an organization and for the people of our organization, that was a different model. So it really was taking a step back and redefining with the team that I had, which I was very fortunate that I could give levels of authority and accountability. So it really was about, okay, I'm not going to be in the day to day. It's uncomfortable for me because I'm not going to have answers when I need them. But at the same time, one person can't do it all. And that's why we have a team. And so it was about empowering them and giving them the ability to be leaders within the organization. So I think in our world, I don't know if this is a PE term, but we had crystal balls. And there were times where I had to do a reset, and the crystal ball are those key items that we didn't want to drop. We don't want to break them. And so how do I stay focused on those? And again, a lot of uncomfort, I would say, Michelle, and adaptation to a new way of approaching core competencies. So those were kind of just high level, some of the things that really stood out that for me challenged me, made me question my confidence, and created a great opportunity for learning.
Good. Yeah, thank you for setting the stage for us. Basically, this is difficult work. This is not easy. It is not easy work leading at speed. You have a lot of things that you're juggling. Now, before we get into the competencies, I want to share a little bit about like what is happening in us, because it's not just about skill or strategy. It's also about biology. It's also about a very real line in the sand of what is my brain and body able to handle when I'm leading at this level of speed. So high environments flood us with stimuli, decisions, emotions, conflict, priorities, conversation, like all this stuff is happening. And when we're moving fast, it's critical to align ourselves with what to lean into the brain and not against it, right? So the real magic happens when we build competencies that honor how the brain actually functions, its limits, its triggers, its strengths. So you'll see in the bottom corner, I dropped a link in a book, and Elizabeth will drop that in the chat for you. John Kotter, he's very famous for leading organizational change and leadership psychology, and he came out in the 90s, but he's recently come out in 2022 with a new book. And in his new book, he basically says, we're not going to conquer this challenge unless we look at brain science, management psychology, and leadership psychology. So we're going to look at all three of those today. But let me walk you through what's happening in your brain, kind of a day in the life of leading at speed. You ready for this? All right. So first and foremost, we've got the prefrontal going crazy. So you have this part of your brain that's responsible for decision making, for planning, for goals, for regulating behavior, for filtering out distractions so that you can focus on what you need, your working memory, organization, right? And a couple of things happen in the brain and body when we become that hyper-focused. We have neurochemical changes happening. So what happens first? You get flooded with adrenaline. So the body goes, whoa, we have deadlines. We have stuff to do. So we have to give the brain and the body all of this extra energy to be able to do all of this stuff, right? The other thing that happens is our cortisol levels go up. So stress levels go up, and we all know what that feels like, right? So the brain is putting the body into this state of like, hey, this is really important. So this is why you'll get to the end of the day and you're like, did I eat today? Did I drink water today? Because the brain's like, that's not important. We need to hit the deadline, right? So that's your cortisol acting up. But here's the other interesting thing. The brain also releases oxytocin. And for those of you that don't know, oxytocin is known as the social drug. It's most known for appearing in intimate relationships and mother-child bonding, but oxytocin gets released with a solid high five, right? Oxytocin can get released when the Eagles win the Super Bowl, right? So what's happening is when the oxytocin hits our brain, it makes us social. This is why when we hear a town hall, we run to our neighbor. Did you hear the announcements that they made? Did you hear the policy changes that they were talking about? What do you think they're going to do about this? People start chatting because what's happening is the brain is saying, hey, I need help. I don't think I can do this on my own. And I think I need other people to like help and rally. So that's what's happening in your brain. Now, I think you may know where we're going with this. The brain's only able to sustain so much. And when it starts to reach the capacity of what the prefrontal, the logic stuff is able to handle, well, the amygdala gets hijacked, which is where the amygdala in our limbic system is where emotions occur, right? So now what happens is I'm too tired to make decisions up here. So what do? I make decisions based on how I feel. And I make decisions based on what's comfortable. I make decisions based on what's familiar. The familiar may not be correct, but it feels comfortable because I recognize it. So when we live in that state for too long, then that's where the fight and flight freeze starts to come in. We become reactive, defensive, our defense systems kick up. And here's the thing, our core beliefs come to the front. And what are core beliefs? Those core beliefs are those deep-rooted beliefs about ourselves. So if you're going through all of this and in the back of your mind, you're saying, well, I guess I'm just not a good leader. I guess I'm just not competent to be able to do this. I guess this just isn't for me. And when those core beliefs, start speaking to you, this is why in coaching, we take the time to replace this core belief with, well, no, this is what the learning process looks like. And no, I can do this. I am a competent person. Those core beliefs start to drive the behaviors and the action that goes down to the body. We become dysregulated. So there's a lot happening neurologically. So we set this up because it's not just about learning. It's not just about skills. It's also about mentally and psychologically approaching this appropriately, right? Now, let's start to talk about some of the competencies, because we asked all of you what you thought the competencies were. Now, why are we presenting this data? Because everyone in the room is living it. So the people in this call, you're connected to private equity, you're leading at speed, you're navigating the real challenges every day. And when we're trying to figure something out in leadership, one of the smartest things to do is to crowdsource. So in this call, we have executives from 5 different PE-led companies, all in the C-suite. We have general managers of marinas. We have HR leaders, VP, directors, and managers in HR. We have higher education in this call. We have financial institutions in this call. We have the cruise industry in this call, and we have business owners in this call. So this isn't a random Facebook survey. This is coming from top experts. So we asked you, the experts, what competencies do you think are most important for leading at speed? And here's what you had to say. So we surveyed a total of 41 people. We had 29 of you respond, and there were 69 competencies listed in total. And I think you can see very quickly that what rises to the top is decision-making and judgment. Being able to make decisions quickly, prioritizing, problem solving, and then right below that comes change and adaptability. Not just leading change, but being resilient, avoiding burnout, being adaptable, being able to meet the demands of that challenge. And then, of course, you have your classic communication and influence. So we've got things like confidence, collaboration, positive energy. Organization was a big one, policies, SOPs, being organized, attention to detail, motivation and culture, values and integrity, and then creativity and innovation and learning and growth should be switched there at the bottom, but you get it, okay? So this is what all of you had to say about leadership. So this is a really important slide. These are the experts in the room, and this is what all of you are saying is necessary. Now that we've seen like what has surfaced in this group, we want to take it a step further and offer more of a structure, a way to organize and make sense of all the competencies. So this next model we're going to show you is one that Jennifer and I built together based on a lot of her experience and based on a lot of my psychology experience. So we want you to understand some of the core clusters, like the important pieces of like, what's the foundation that you really need to know? So Jennifer, can you start to take us through some of these competency groups and help us understand like the clarity, the awareness, we need the language first. So take us through some of this language.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get us set up. And I think that, again, as we look at, I'm going to go back to the psychological piece, because at a time that you're new to an organization and you want to deliver results, we tend to go back to what we've always done. And so one of the things we tried to do here is 69 competencies is too much. It's, I know out of the gate, I wanted to be perfect at all of them. I want to master them, but that isn't even realistic. So really honing in on the outcomes that are going to deliver results, particularly within this model of private equity. So we're going to break this down a little bit more, and I'm going to talk through each of these, and then we're going to move forward here. But one is just really decision making. Again, we saw that as the #1 competency, and that is going to help us lead at speed. Within the private equity model, we see a huge need for being competent within financial acumen, really understanding the financial aspects of the business. There's a focus on value creation. We have change leadership. Again, what are the changes we're going to make, and talent optimization and communication. So I want to give you an example. I want to talk through each one of these and then kind of take you through an example, because again, if you have been in a privately held company and then you transition to private equity, the outcomes of these are very different. And I think this is where there's a disconnect and where there's that hurdle we need to get over to move quickly, to move at speed, as well as to build our competency set. So let's take a traditional private equity. Traditional privately held company. When you look at the competency, and why I go through this is I think for the group that I worked with that was acquired, I would say we were all competent leaders. We had anywhere from about 2 to 25 years of experience. Again, we achieved some great results within the company, and you come in with that as your baseline and your framework. Now, how that decision-making competency, it's different. And I would say that when it came to decision-making, what we saw was that decisions were very thoughtful. They were about financial constraints. They were consensus-based, tended to be more incremental, and time spent. From a financial acumen standpoint, we did see that it was, I would say that there was a moderate level of business literacy, and I don't want to disregard this for anybody, but what in our experience, what we had is that we did a business review monthly, and we had the financials, but anything to the owner was usually outside of that. So again, really enough to understand the business and help guide the decisions that were going to be made. Value creation was, again, about profit, but the profit was through sustaining incremental growth is what I would say. It wasn't about mass changes. It was a strategic approach to how do we grow our operations in a more constrained manner. Change leadership was really very gradual. It was very people focused in what we did. It was about the culture. Every time we made that decision, it was about how are we going to make a decision in alignment with our culture? And we would communicate it. I'm kind of going out of order here, but we would communicate it in that manner as well. Talent optimization and really how do you maintain top talent? We had some good results there. It was very tenure based. It was kind of that on the job training. We promote from within. We really relied heavily on our most senior employees and our years of experience. Okay, so we have a new group. We have new individuals coming into an organization because they've recently been acquired, have a history of operating this way, and now we transition to a new model, this private equity backed model. And if you want to pull that up, there we go. I would say that, again, these are some generalizations, but it was interesting when I saw this, it resonated so heavily with me. But in the decision-making process in private equity, it's very fast-paced. It is, it's make decisions quickly. There is decisions about, financial acumen. Really, I kind of felt like I had to go back and take a master's in finance. It's much deeper in that, and that data is definitely used in making the decisions. So it isn't just, I think this is the right thing to do. It's the data is laid out, and you can very clearly see what that decision needs to be. Value creation isn't a slow process. It's really looking at things strategically and engineering for transformation. How are we going to grow and create a return on our investment? With a change leadership perspective, it was fast, right? We needed rapid results, and we needed to deliver on those, whether it's a 100-day plan, digital transformation. Those were all things that we needed to do within a timely manner. That was our expectation of our delivery. Talent optimization went far beyond. What I would say with this, what I saw was that it was really about investing in the people, investing in the people and investing in the process, opposed to letting it happen more organically. So a more deliberate, and then communication was more metric based. So, the change and why we have the yellow line there is I think when you have a group of individuals that come in, and they have a history of operating under competencies as competent leaders. And then there's this new model. It's stressful, right? The cortisol goes up, the reaction to stress goes up. And I think one example I have of that is the company that I had worked for previous to the acquisition. We had divested several companies, and at the point that we had a letter of intent, we met as a leadership team. We developed what that communication plan was going to be. We really spent time thinking about every single aspect of it. Again, are we going to do retention bonuses? When are we going to communicate it? To what level of transparency? To who's going to say what message? Again, felt good about that. You go into private equity and the model is different. And it was really interesting because we were going through the value creation planning process, and we were looking at I'm going to say kind of the segments of the business. And through the data analytics, it became very clear that if we're looking to create value in an organization, there were some parts of the business that really weren't creating value. And so there was a decision made quickly to look at how do we take the dollars from that and allocate it into parts of our business that are going to create more revenue and more profit for us and more growth for our people and for us personally. And it was a very fast decision, and it was super easy because the data was there. But I can tell you from a leadership perspective, it felt very different. And those are the things that I think really understanding that you're in a new model, you're in a new business structure. And although you could be competent coming into an organization, that competency is actually slightly different. And so it's really about getting a definition to that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. So, a lot of what Jennifer just described, she just described her like working in before was very traditional. It's very transactional. And the leaders there were incredibly successful, decision making, finance, all of these things. But when you transition into private equity, you're taking those same skill sets and then they become different in context and they change. So it's very important to understand that like these competency areas, most leaders have these competencies, but now in a new environment, it's a different game plan. So it's not just enough to identify the competencies, but you really have to give it context in what's happening. So Jennifer, we got to start to move along, but I really want you to tell the story here. We have a few moments, and what we've done for you is we have key competencies. So all competencies are good, but these are the key competencies that are really going to be powerful in the PE. So as we talk through, if you want to drop something in the chat, what competencies do you or your team want to focus on? So Jennifer, if you can kind of briefly take us through the story with your team, with the HRIS system, and kind of talk through each one.
Yeah, I'll touch on this pretty high level. I think that, these are some, this is a model that you can use. And I think that, again, when it came to how to lead at speed and how to have results, these were a couple of things that I think can help any one individual. So one, dealing with ambiguity. I mean, first, you just need to jump in. For me, where we were was that we needed a new HRIS system. And you're talking about, again, I look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is a big spend for the company. So how do I make the right decision? But I think where I was guided and what was really helpful was defining what were the 5 critical things that we needed within that system. And number 1 was customer service. We have data integrity. And let me back up. Customer service is how do we make it easier for the end customer? How do we reduce our workflow and the requirement of HR? But we established those 5 categories, and it helped with the ambiguity. It really keeps you focused on what am I making a decision on? When you're looking at an HRIS that has 7 different modules to it, it's easy to get caught up in the noise around you. But again, the leader that I was working with was like, does it deliver on these 5? And it did, and it really helped bring clarity to ambiguity. I think for us as well, it helped us make that decision. Again, really keeping it simple, focusing on the 5 opposed to everything around us. We wanted it to be cost effective. But at the same time, most important was, is it making it easier for our end user and our customer? Any kind of change or anything is going to take managerial courage. And for me, what helped me in rolling this out to our leadership team and to our organization was that I was clear on those 5. We delivered on that. We knew that we were hitting our top 5 most important points. So again, at a time where you can question, are we ready? There's multiple programs, people are challenging you, they've worked on a system that they really like. It's like, well, no, we know that this delivers on our 5. And I believe that really helped me with managerial courage of again, sticking to the core of what we were looking for. Empowering the next level leader. Again, if you're talking about transformational leadership, I think this was key to our team. And I was very fortunate. I had a couple of team members. Well, I should say I had a team of individuals that were respected by the managers and the leaders in the organization. And again, my role, it's really about simplifying it. My role was to make the right decision, and the team was empowered then to build the system. I used them as the subject matter experts that are dealing with employees and dealing with managers, and were in the know to be the ones to build out the system the way that we needed it. My role of it was looking to make sure that, okay, if we're eventually going to sell this organization, and I just came off of due diligence, how do I build a structure that's going to give the data and give the reporting down the road? But I will tell you that every single member of the team was involved in developing this system and building out within their area of expertise. So again, utilizing your resources and your team. It was end results. I think it's important to stay focused. Luckily I had an executive leadership team that kept me focused as a crystal ball and making sure I didn't drop that. As well as for me managing for the end result, one thing that was really important was utilizing that executive team to help message it. And they did a great job. I will say my CEO was the first one in using it, which always panicked me because you're like, don't let it go wrong. But that sets the stage for that end result, that we had a system and we're going to use it. And I think too, really recognizing we were going to make mistakes. I'd heard it. I just say, let's make little mistakes, really focus on the our top 5 priorities, but then mistakes along the way are really more continuous improvement. You can't avoid it, particularly in a system of that size. So that just kind of was my story and some tips that I would say really helped me navigate through uncomfort.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing. And for those of you listening, I encourage you to think through these competencies and put your own story to it. How do you deal with ambiguity? How are you doing with making quick decisions, and what helps ground you? What does courage look like for you? And how do you lead through your people? Not just tell them what to do, but to truly empower that next level, because you can't do it all. You cannot do it all. Things move too fast, right? So I'm going to take us briefly as we're in the final few minutes here. We wanted to offer you some insights on what can you actually do? So Jennifer, we have less than a minute. So if you can walk us through quickly and high level, so what can we do for these leaders that are out here that are in PE or they're leading at speed? What are some things that they can do for their organization to help people move through this?
Yeah, I think one thing that would be really useful is coming in to a newly acquired organization. If you have been recently acquired, what I would do is do a PE leadership onboarding to really help teach the model. What is the model that is going to be expected? I look at, we onboard our employees, we onboard managers and leaders, we teach them about our company. We need to apply that same approach when acquiring an organization. And we have a framework for you if that would be useful. The next is really helping with skill building. So if you can jump ahead to labs, I think quarterly labs. So again, these are kind of those checkpoints of I need to practice skills, as well as I can work with my peers to help problem solve and upskill. And the last one is on coaching. I think that, again, coming in new to an organization, to have somebody that is an ally that can help push you, that can look at things more objectively, really helps bring calm to the psychological aspect of this and helps build better leaders. So those are three things that I would recommend as a framework.
Thank you, Jennifer. And we're here to help you with that. And there's an article in the corner. I highly recommend you checking it out. It's called How Financial Accounting Screws Up HR, which is a rough title. But basically, it talks about the difference in investments. When we make an investment, like on capital expenditure, it's an investment for the company, right? But when we invest in people, it doesn't turn up like that on the books. It's just an expense. It's not seen as investing, even though you're investing in your people. So that's a powerful article. I encourage you all to check that out. So as we kind of close things out, I want to leave you with this final note. If any of you have ever heard, or maybe you have it, of Kelly McGonigal, she's a health psychologist and has a really great book and TED Talk. I highly recommend you check it out. And Elizabeth, if you can drop that in the comments for us. And she talks about the upside of stress. And basically, how we think about stress matters. The goal isn't to avoid stress, it's to get better at stress. That's why we started with the neurological piece of like, well, how are you leaning into your brain? And it's why we started with the coaching question of like, how is stress benefiting you? Or like, what are you learning from that experience? So how we reframe and look at things, yes, stress is very detrimental for your health. No arguments. There's way too many studies out there to argue that. But the way we look at stress can actually have a profound effect. And if we see it as an opportunity that's shaping us, that's helping us grow, we might actually see a lot different benefits. So when you feel the nerves of anxiety start to hit, and when your palms get sweaty and your heart starts to race, and when you feel the chaos of change, and when you feel the chaos of everyone around you, the reason or the response, or the reason you're having the feeling, is that your body is gearing up for the situation. It's your body preparing you to conquer this challenge. So what you're feeling is the beginning of courage. So when Jennifer talked about managerial courage, boom, it doesn't always feel good in the body, but that's what's happening. So again, how we think about stress matters, and the goal is to get better. So in the chat, to kind of bring everything together as we close this conversation, what felt most meaningful or surprising to you from this session today? Take a moment and think about, what do you want to walk away from, or what was really important? And stick to the things that maybe had an emotional impact on you. Because when your brain has an emotional response to something, that's usually its cry for, we're trying to figure that out. And that's why it kind of gives you that emotional response. So if you're willing to drop a thought or a takeaway, I would love to hear what you all have to say. And let's keep the conversation going. Jennifer and I took over a month to put this presentation together, and we took it from here all the way to a 30-minute presentation. So we have a lot more information and support to be able to get to you. So if this is something you're going through, a great place to start is to schedule a capability conversation with us. So if you're not sure, you're like, I think I want to coach, I want to invite learning, but what does that look like? A capability conversation is where we tell you, here's who we are, here's how we do business, and we have that conversation to see if there's a good fit. Check us out on LinkedIn, give us a follow. We have a lot of really cool stuff going on in there. And as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up, not just physically, but mentally. Thank you for thinking deeply and for engaging in the chat and being a part of this space. This lab is possible because of you, the community. So we hope today gave you something. As a reminder, we'll send all of the follow-ups. If today's session sparks something, please reach out. Great news. Our next session happens July 15th, first month of every quarter. And this is actually the registration link if you want to register now. So we're going to be talking about leading the collective. We do a lot of work talking about individual change within us, but it's a different beast when you're leading multiple people. So we're going to talk about leadership misalignment. We're going to talk about the organizational immune system, because teams are unconsciously protecting old ways of working. You know, that legacy information and knowledge that lives within that you're trying to pull out. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about change, fatigue, and fear, because employees don't resist change. They resist loss. And that's an important distinction. So we're going to talk about that more. So again, thank you all for showing up today. Drop your comments and your questions. We will package everything for you and send it your way. So we'll see you again next quarter, same date, 15th of the first month in July. So until then, thank you for being here. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Elizabeth, thank you for hosting us. And thank you to the community of leaders. We hope to see you again. And as always, go Phils. Have a good day,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks.